Get that out of there. All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight is November 29th. It's the meeting of the Permanent Building Committee. The first item is going to be, sorry, I'm reading the agenda right here. So John Proctor who's an applicant for the open space on the Permanent Building Committee is here. And we're going to have him, if you could, tell us, what you think you could bring to the committee and the reason why you wanted to join. I read your application, but it's always best to hear it from the actual person.
Okay. Well, my past experience has been several-fold. I've been on the Housing Corporation board for my fraternity at Purdue for decades. I was president for 9 years when we built an 8,500 square foot addition and renovated the existing 8,500 square feet, and I dealt with the town, Purdue University, many officials, and trying to get everything squared away for permits and everything from deciding on how many parking spaces there would be and how many bedrooms there could be and where the bushes needed to be and all that sort of thing. So have some interesting experiences there and built some confidence in being able to work with people who before I met them had no reason to know I existed or help me. So I've also was treasurer on the board for the Orleans Historical Society, and I was very into the filing of forms to get CPA money, working with the town trying to obtain land and permission to build outbuildings and that sort of thing. So to answer your question about my interest, I'm interested in participating in projects and getting things done. That's just my nature. That's what I like to do. I'm new to the town. I moved in January. Just so happens that I met John Stedman and had a number of discussions with him while on walking tours on local trails and so forth about subject matter with respect to the town. And it sounded like there are many things going on. Many things have already been done. I found it quite interesting. And I would just like the opportunity to see what you folks need and whether there's a fit. My educational background was as an industrial management and industrial engineer at Purdue University. I was offered a position with one of the major railroads up in Chicago before I finished the engineering degree. I went on to get my MBA in finance, and I also passed the CPA exam in the state of Illinois. Never really a practicing auditor. I spent most of my career in the insurance industry, in the last 30 years or so in management, and including a number of positions as controller, VP of finance, CFO. What else can I throw in there? Has everybody had a chance to look at what I wrote? I don't know if that adds anything more than what I've just said or not.
No, we read it, and so one of the other things is that we'll have meetings that when we get if we get further along and there'll be a project coming up will entail having to attend meetings. You don't see an issue with being able to do that at all?
I've been retired for 7 years, and I'm totally free. My previous, obviously, I've moved away from Orleans, so I'm not on that board anymore. And with the fraternity, I probably spend, I probably spend 10 or 12 hours a month on that. So that leaves a lot of hours. Never on Tuesday.
Anyone else on the board have
Never
any
on
questions?
Tuesday nights either.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyone else on the board have any questions that they'd want to ask John?
What do you think about the possibility of the railroads actually not going on strike, since you're an expert?
Oh,
Never
yeah.
mind.
You know, my expertise was mostly in cost analysis and corporate planning work, but so I really don't have an opinion. Sorry.
Don't mean to put you on the spot, but what the heck?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you were getting more specific as to what, if anything, should be done with the railroad depot in the town of Millis, I might have an opinion.
I do have a question about going back to the project, the renovation and expansion project for the building at Purdue. Can you just, when you're talking about the actual, you talked about approvals, you talk about budgets. How about monitoring the actual activity of the construction team or the project manager, if there was one? How did that sort of play out with your project there?
Yeah. So my first comment is I about wore out a Lincoln going back and forth from Libertyville in Illinois, which is about 45 miles northwest of Chicago, down to Lafayette. So that was close to a 3-hour trip, and I was down there constantly.
Okay.
So the first job I had was what I thought was to find an architect, and I did. And he drew up some plans. And quite frankly, I didn't know enough to know whether I had the right thing or not. And so I made contact with our international Sigma Pi fraternity folks, and I said, who's helped on construction projects elsewhere in the country? And they had a builder, and he came along with an idea as to who the architect should be. So I got a general contractor who had an architect. They put together plans. We met several times with the village engineer, went to several town meetings. We met with neighbors to make sure they had an idea of what was going on and why. I met with the folks at the Purdue Research Foundation that owned the house next door to the 3 lots we already had. One of those 3 was the parking lot. And to put the addition on, I wanted to put the addition into the existing parking lot and then put a new parking lot where this house was. So that was a little bit of a negotiation because it was rented out to an assistant professor. I bought out his lease. Basically, he was happy, and we gave away the building. And so I can't believe how smoothly things went. All this probably took about 2 years, and I was the one from the board basically who participated daily on this.
Okay.
The actual work started early February, and we didn't get the occupancy permit until the first day of classes. I had guys sleeping in their cars out in the parking lot, but we got it done. I wish I had the shovel for digging the first. Somebody's got it somewhere. Nice chrome shovel. I would love to see that now. So anyways,
Well, there's always got to be the picture of groundbreaking and the picture of ribbon cutting.
Yes, yes. Those pictures exist somewhere.
Okay.
I didn't have the presence of mind to have somebody give me those pictures then, and now we're talking about 33 years, but they're somewhere. Somebody's got
Okay.
it.
All right, great. Was there, you all said, Jim, were there any other questions?
I had one other question, which it relates to, a project that's clearly on our plate. And it relates to not the time, by month, but by years. I mean, the school project is in all likelihood, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Rich and Diane, and John, it's a 3 to 5 year project and probably not 3. So it's important that you understand, not that you're signing your life away here, but to some degree, I think we're interested in, not just the commitment of time, but the commitment of length of time.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to make the commitment. I'd be sad if I weren't on the board until you didn't need me anymore.
Oh, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's hard to say I want to be on the board for 20 years, but
No.
Like I said, I've been on the board for the fraternity since 1981, and the only reason I'm not on the board in Orleans is the move up here was for family and closer to better medical and so forth. I mean, just getting routine checkups and that sort of thing was difficult on the Cape for some reason. So.
All right, we're gonna, McKay is here, so we're gonna have to, if anyone else has any other questions, if everyone's all set. We appreciate your interest. We unfortunately have more than one candidate. We wish we could have both of you, no matter what happens, because it's great to see people who are interested in helping out the town. So, we appreciate you coming and explaining what you want to do to help us.
Right. All right. Well, thanks, folks, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All
Great.
right.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Next item on the agenda would be DPW with Mr. McKay. Hi, Jim.
How you doing? Thank you.
Good.
So just a quick update on the project. It's hard to believe we're almost been in the building a year, coming January 1st. We first got the occupancy permit for the garage area on December 1st, and then the outside building was on December 29th. We're still working out some of the kinks in the building, believe it or not. It's just like any other project. When you get it's not a full green building, but the light switches, they're not the normal light switches anymore. Everything's operated by a battery, and they're all starting to die. And so each outlet switch has to be changed. We're still having little problems with the outside lighting coming on, staying on for whatever it wants to stay on. But Nick and the architect are still, every time David calls them up, they're very responsive, and they do come out and they send somebody out, and they're trying to address it to the best of their ability. There was a question about if we all remember, the big problem with the garage area out in the wash bay, the buckling of the side panels. That I think we all remember that. I can report that they haven't gotten any worse. They're not going to get any better, but I mean, they haven't gotten any worse. It hasn't spread, so it stayed in that one area, and the area is used. I mean, we've used it through the whole season. The generator, from all the emails we finally ordered, that's been ordered, so there should not be any more issue with that. We're just waiting for it to be delivered. The Eversource aspect for the gas service, that's already been paid. The committee already approved that payment, and that's already been sent to them. They're just waiting until it gets a little closer. I don't want them to start digging a trench before, in winter time or something like that. The pavement is complete. I think if everybody's driven through there, they'll see it was a great job. It did come in not as much as over budget as we thought. But I think if you look at the spreadsheet, we could have taken some of that. I could have split it up a little better. But Kim only does what she's given, and that's what she was given. I didn't use any of the funds in I think it was the driveway part or anything like that. So all that money is still there. It says curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and driveways. And it was initially $23,990, and that's all still there. So that could almost offset the overage of the paving. We do have one little puddle there. It's It's outside the wash bay. And the contractor's gonna come back. He has to fix a couple more on, street paving. So he will look at that and infrared it and bring it up to grade. The only thing that's really left, other than the generator, which that could take almost into next year to finally close this project out, that you guys did, is the camera system. Several months ago, I think it was right about the same time that we did the generator approval. We approved the cost of $28,000 for a camera system. And that was about 6 months ago. And it's been a long process to get through the, so the town's trying to consolidate everything. Surprise. I mean, we're trying to, just the camera system alone to get that taken care of. And then when we started with the PFAS building, we're trying to integrate that into the same process, the same server and everything else. And eventually this will all be taken over by the police department. They will have the panels in front of their, in the dispatch. And we were waiting till they did some, little renovation they got a new, I guess a new desk or something for the dispatchers. And so that's complete. So now they have the space of where they're going to put up all the their screens to monitor it. We've been working with the chief. Actually, we had a meeting today and Jim Donovan's been, the driving force in this. He is our IT director and been following his instructions on, what he wants and what he thinks is the best for the town. And I believe it's the biggest system is the town will settle on a server. I believe it's Gentek. It's a Gentek system. And the Gentek system, the good thing about that is where the DPW has no system whatsoever, we'll install the Gentek system there. And once we get the licensing for all of that, we'll be able to, Gentek can take any type of camera system that the town has. And right now the town has, the schools are different, the police station's different, the fire's different, the library's different. And I think there's maybe one or two in the library and the town hall, they're all different. And so Jim's trying to, bring this all together under this Gentek system. So we did a survey. We brought out the integrated security system. They're the company that we're eventually going to contract with to install all the cameras. I was going to send all this out in an email, and I was told I could send it to you after the meeting because it's a security issue, and I have to put on it that it's that it's security and you can't share it. It's one of those things that it's one of the only things that we can talk about it, but we can't share the stuff on a public meeting. So the town administrator and town council gave me those instructions. So after the meeting, I'll forward you an email, and what you're going to be looking at is the quote for the DPW. So let me go back. So we're integrating the PFAS, the new treatment facility proposal with the DPW building. We're not asking for, I'm going to ask for a little bit more money, and I'll explain why in 1 minute, but the 28,000 will be the initial cost of what it would have cost for the project, the DPW cost. The rest will be, board by the PFAS treatment building, and that will have to be presented to the select board. And the town administrator and I will do that, not at the next meeting. I think it's the following meeting. So when the police chief came down and the camera people came down, when we originally did the survey, there was one, and I did talk to the chair, Mr. Clarko, about this before. He was aware of this, and they want to add one more camera. And the reason why they want to add the camera, I think if the people that go to the transfer station, you'll see that we put a flagpole up there. Right as you're driving out or entering, we put the old flagpole that we used at the library. We reuse that. So we will use it as a flagpole, but it will also house a camera on it. And what it's going to do, it's going to get all these cameras that we're buying. They're not just a single camera. There are three 4 cameras in one, so you'll get a complete circle view of everything. So this camera will be up towards the end of the parking lot, and it will protect the buses. And in doing that, Jim Donovan will be able to put this under some sort of, he can file for a grant, not so much of a grant, but we can use it as a contract. Now that we're protecting school buses, we can get cheaper prices on the licensing for all that.
Jim, one question on that. I was thinking of the PFAS. So
Yep.
that, could you apply, because that's water? Because I mean, like Homeland Security,
Yeah.
as they want to protect the water. I mean, that might be
Yeah,
another thing.
Yeah, we tried that, and there's nothing really out there, but we did get a grant because we were going to use the DPW for Homeland. Jim got a grant for fiber optics. That's
And
going to
one more
hopefully
question.
tie all this in.
And
Yep.
just one more question on the camera, just because I don't know enough about
Yep.
it. So you got the camera. What, just so I understand, what is it motion sensitive? So it like blinks or does something to alert them that there's something going
Yep.
on?
Yep.
Oh,
So this
okay, good.
system,
All right.
with this Gentex system, it'll be, if you're looking at it, you'll see it, but it records. And then the minute somebody drives up Water Street, it'll be the main screen, it'll pop up. And then they can dispatch somebody out there, or they can do anything, with that. And you're going to start to see a lot more cameras in Millis. You're going to start seeing them on streets and everything else. So it's all a large program that the police chief's working on. Detective, I think Gonzalez has been, he's been working very long and on this, and most of theirs is through a grant that they're using. Jim Donovan did a grant through, like I say, for the fiber optics to get the Norfolk Road treatment plant to the DPW and then back to the police station, so that will all be tied into the police station. So I guess what I'm here for is the most important thing is this new camera. It's $3,100, and that was not part of the original proposal of the $28,000. And what that will do is, I think you've all remember, I mean, when we had the cameras on the town hall and they came and they stole all the catalytic converters out of the little minivans, there was no cameras on them in the parking lot where it was. But there was one camera on when they stole the 2 out of the senior citizen buses that were parked there, but they're not the high quality. These cameras you'd be able to have it on, and then as after it's recording, you'll be able to zoom in, and you're going to get fine point of anything that's going on.
What you need is a motion from us for the approval of $3,100 for an additional camera.
Correct, and that would bring the approval from 28 to what? 31?
Yep. All right. So I make a motion. Oh, do we want to
Wait,
discuss
does
it?
anybody have any questions?
That's just what I was going to ask. I
Oh,
think.
sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. I guess that's in the form of the motion. I mean, basically what we're asking is to go forward with a surveillance camera at the DPW that is integrated with the townwide system. So, okay, I'm fine with that because that makes sense to me in terms of the project. It's not really project creep. It's just making this particular element consistent with the townwide security system. Is that correct?
That's that is actually, it'll all be one system that the town's going to operate through the IT director and the police department.
Thank you.
And I did talk with the police chief this morning because I had a question about the technical aspects, and it was just before Jim's meeting. So everything, all the due diligence has been done on this, which is good. And it's something that is good for the town, I think.
John, do you have any questions?
Just to be clear, so this item we're talking about will tie in all the other cameras, town hall, police, DPW, town hall, all the cameras around town will be tied in together.
The police department will be able to watch all the cameras, yep, including all the new ones, the 12 cameras that they're going to install in the next couple of weeks. Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
John, this is not ready tomorrow.
No, no.
It's gonna take some time to do all of this. And to integrate it, but at least they've done all the homework.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing, and there's very little in the world that's ready for tomorrow.
I mean, Detective Gonzalez has done a great job in this. He's been, and I think when you see what is going to happen, we're all going to start stopping at stop signs and red lights and everything else, and they're all going to slow the hell down.
You weren't supposed to tell them that. Only kidding.
So I can take my old selectman badge, put it up in the truck,
You put it on the dashboard.
see if that works. Or I can stop at the stop sign.
What a good idea.
Jim, I don't know what badges you speak of, but I don't have one.
Uh-oh, she wants one.
All right, I make a motion that we approve the amount of $3,100 for the additional integrated camera for the DPW project.
Second,
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
No, I'm sorry, I was writing. Who seconded?
Jim McCaffrey did.
Okay, thank you.
And we have to poll everybody, Rich, because it's
Okay.
Zoom.
Okay, that's fine. Jim,
yes.
Diane,
Yes,
John,
Yes,
and I say yes also, so. All right, great. Thank you,
Right,
Jim.
And then just closing out, we have one bill that I will be forwarding to Kim. It's for $2. That it was my fault when I did a filing something, I missed $2 and it's to the state. And I did call Diane and ask if they would take 2 single-dollar bills, and you were correct. They said no.
No.
So, all right.
All right. It
Thank
was, yep, it's so great. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Okay, and when do we start talking about, do we have to wait till everything's, Diane will probably know more about this, then when do we start closing the project out? We don't owe anybody anything. There's nothing left to the contractor or the architect. Do we have like a year walkthrough with them, or do we do it on our own? I mean, is that something?
Usually they have a 1 year from,
Yeah.
substantial completion that they have a walkthrough, and then the contractor is basically released for, whatever it is, depending on some of the systems have their own warranty. So like, the heating system may have a 5-year warranty that is carried on. But I think, we can check with, we will have to check with Wayne and see what the final thought on that was to close this thing out. So,
oh, we are a year,
Mhm.
a little over from substantial completion.
Right.
And we're still drizzling in bills. So is the generator invoice in already?
No. No, and that, I won't pay for that till we get it, so.
And do you have an idea when?
It could be another 3 to 6 months, yeah, which we knew.
Oh,
that. Yeah,
So that answers your question. We can't close
Okay.
out until we do that.
Yep.
All right,
Good.
all right, thank you.
All right, good. Thank you. Good night, Jim.
Everybody, thanks.
Jim.
Good night.
Nice to see you, Jim.
Yep.
All right, so we have a few minutes until the next prospective applicant for the position is going to be here. We could go ahead and approve the meeting notes from our last meeting.
That would be great. The minutes were from November 9th.
Yep. So I make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 9th as noted.
Second,
All right, motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. I don't have to
Aye.
poll everyone for that. All right,
yeah,
great. So they were approved. Thank you. Okay, so that takes care of that. What else do we have? SBC update.
Can we just quickly do the signatory thing? It's just so quick for you to be able to, so Wayne used to sign my pay sheets. And now instead of me bringing my pay sheets to the committee and
Yeah.
everybody having to approve it, what we had done before was vote to say that Wayne could sign my pay sheets. And so now, if you would be willing to do the same thing for Rich, it would make things a little easier.
That's fine. We do that for Camille. She, the same thing. So I sign her sheets.
I move that we authorize the chair to sign the pay sheets on behalf
Second,
of ABC.
second,
Right,
Perfect. Thank you.
motions, oh, well, we have to vote on it. Motions made and seconded. I will abstain. Jim,
Yes,
Diane,
Yes,
John,
Yes,
just
thank you.
now that we're off the subject, would it make sense to add me on there too, so I can do things during the day because you're not always around?
No, I mean, for something as simple as that, that's not a problem.
Okay,
I don't have to physically sign them, correct, Kim?
No, yeah, I can, the way I was doing it, and maybe you're doing the same already, but I emailed my pay sheet to you and copied payroll, and then you replied to all with approval. And that
And
works.
that's how I do it. Yeah, I do it with Camille. the
okay,
same
I
way.
thought you had to physically sign the pay sheet.
No,
Well, you did
then
it
you
before
would
COVID,
definitely be in charge.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes. Well, since we have a couple of minutes, we might as well, we can talk about the previous applicant. So I'd say, it seems like a well-educated guy, and I think he'd be an asset. So be interesting to see how the new applicant comes across.
Rich, I spent some time talking to John Proctor about the kinds of projects we've done and what our challenges were and things like that. He has worked on this one project he talked about for the fraternity, but hasn't had a lot of other experience. But that project incorporated a lot of the things we were dealing with, like find a lay down space and blah, blah, blah. So he's interested, very interested. I found that nice.
No, he is definitely seems like he's enthused and wants to help, which is nice.
Yep.
well,
right,
yeah,
what else?
I was impressed with him. I thought he really had a good reason for wanting to do it. He does have some municipal activity in his past, so it's not like he's doesn't have that in his past. I mean, we've got the wealth of options here, which 3 weeks ago we were scratching our heads saying where were we going to go, and now we've got a number of options. I don't know, you have experience with associate members, Rich. I don't know whether that makes any sense for us. Associate members-
Honestly, it might not be a bad idea. I mean, in the planning board, we have the associate, and basically for them, they're allowed to, contribute and vote on many of the parts. And it basically gets another person into the pipeline, and they get to learn, the ropes. That's how I started, I was an
Right.
associate. I think it'd be a great idea. I think, having additional depth in our group, there's only 4 of us, there'll be 5. But that's, I think if we had one more, I think as an associate, I think it'd be a great idea.
That would require a bylaw change, I believe, because the bylaw limits us to 5 people.
It does. Okay.
Jim, do you agree?
I think you could have an associate who's non-voting, but something that town council could tell us, I guess.
Okay. I think
I
it'd
mean,
be worth,
may not be a good idea. I just said,
No.
maybe the
Yeah.
other guy will bomb. I mean, I don't think so.
No, I think it's a great idea. And I think, and the other thing is to have a bylaw. Spring meeting's coming up. That's something that's easy to do. We can propose it for the town meeting.
how
Excuse me,
easy
I
is
don't
it
know.
to revise a bylaw?
You just
You
have
write it
to,
up. You write it up,
and send.
put it before a town meeting, and they say yes or no,
Okay,
and then it's in. So
John, you want to say something, sir?
given some of the exciting, interesting town meetings we've had, it should be okay.
I was just gonna say, Rich, that I don't know either one of these guys, but just looking at the information that we got by email, they both seem, number one, very interested, number two, fairly well qualified. The second guy, I think we're gonna see, seems to have a lot of connection with the state, the financial end of the whole project. And I think it sounds to me anyways, like it'd be very helpful. And the thought crossed my mind, just what you're talking about. I don't see anything wrong with having an extra opinion. an extra mind to pick at. And if we can arrange it, I wouldn't mind having an associate member.
I think one of the things when we did the school project that Wayne did is, he actually solicited input from just people in the audience, which initially when he did it, I thought, I wasn't a big fan, but there was some good ideas that came out of the audience that you never would have thought. So.
Yeah.
And with that, the next thing we have to do for the school project is we'll have to get an owner's project manager. So basically, we'll solicit for applications for that. Once we get the project manager, the owner's project manager, basically they were the ones that'll do the most of the work for the school project. So they'll do the bidding, they'll compare all the bids, they'll do the bulk of the work, and it'll be us like in the last time, we'll review the stuff, it'll be all digested. And then we could pick out the questions that we had on our own. So the good news is it's not us building the school, it's them building the school, and we're making sure that it's going the way that benefits the town the most.
All right, Jeremy is in the waiting room, so just let me know whenever you want me to let him in.
Let him in.
All right, here he comes.
Don't everybody jump on him at once.
Oh, there we go. Oh. Hi, Jeremy, how are you doing? Can you see us?
I'm well. Yes, I can. How are you all doing?
Good, thanks. So we got you here so we could ask you to explain why you would like to take this open position, and just a brief background of your experience and why you want to jump into this thing.
Yeah, certainly. So thank you everyone for your time tonight. So my current position, I'm the Director of Budget and Administration for the City of Attleboro. And since about 2 weeks after I started that, almost 3 years ago now, I also became the Capital Projects Administrator. So I'm the lead administrator on our MSBA project, which is a $259.9 million new high school construction project. So before that, I was a budget analyst with the Public Schools of Brookline. And before that, I was a public finance analyst with Fitch Ratings, rating municipal debt. So I've got a master's in public administration from Cornell in economics and finance, and then a not super as relevant, but a bachelor's in history from Quinnipiac. So my whole career has been in public finance. In the last 5 or so years, I've been in Massachusetts municipal finance. My wife and I bought a house here just over a year ago. We live on Walnut Street up near the Des Moines. So it's, public service has been a part of our family and a part of my life. So I thought that my particular, interests and background were well served to this committee. The commission, I'm actually not sure what the C is in a committee or commission. But I thought that once I saw there was an opening, and I had reached out to the town administrator, and Rich had reached out to me as well, I thought it could be a good fit. So I'm happy to talk some more specifics about my experience or my background, or any questions that you have specific to Melis that you think I could be helpful in.
Yeah, so one thing with this, and there was another applicant, we went through it. So as I think Diane brought up, so this project is going to be 3 to 5 years, and there'll be meetings that we'll have to attend to, get this thing pushed through, provided we get the funding from the MSBA. And will you be able to attend these meetings and make it there, because it's, like I said, it is a commitment.
Yeah, of course. Do you typically meet on Tuesday nights?
Yeah, we would tend to have a set meeting, but we can switch around if need be. Sometimes things come up and we have to move them around, but that would be, and then there'll be meetings for the school that will be all sorts of different nights. And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm the staff person for two separate commissions in Attleboro, but my presence at the particular meetings isn't, half the time I write a memo and then follow up later on. So I support our municipal building commission, which is, the PBC equivalent in Attleboro, and then I support our school building committee as well. So those meetings are kind of flexible for me. The only kind of standing difficult thing for me would be during budget season when we're passing our budget. So as a city with a municipal council that meets every 2 weeks, we have a bit more access than to town meeting, which you just get 2 bites at the apple every year. We get 2 bites a month, which I'm not quite sure that I understand how spoiled I am compared to my colleagues in towns versus cities. But so anyway, long way of saying, when we're presenting our budget between mid-April and mid-June, or early May and mid-June, I'm a bit tied up, 3 nights a week with those budget presentations for about 6 weeks. But besides that, yeah, I have, flexibility to attend.
Okay.
Rich, maybe we could introduce the board members.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you, Diane. Diane she's the vice chair, Diane Duran. Yeah. And Jim McCaffrey was a former selectman, and he is one of the board members. And then John, hold on, last name. Larkin. Sorry, I was having a brain cramp. John has been on as long as I've been on. And then Aaron Underhill is one of the select board members.
And Kim
And
Borst
Kim.
is our admin.
Yes, that was going to get to that next.
Sorry.
You must have had coffee, so you're a step ahead of me. So that sounds great. Speaking of which, does anyone else on the board have any questions for Jeremy?
I do. Jeremy, you have been sitting on this committee working on the high school. Can you kind of identify what your biggest challenges were doing that project?
So I came on after the debt exclusion was passed. So the debt exclusion was passed in the spring of 2018. We broke ground in the fall of 2019, and I joined early 2020.
Okay.
There's been a number of challenges. One is that, we started building a project as COVID hit and all those supply chain issues, but I don't think that's the thrust of your question. I think one of the biggest challenges was that MSBA caps your reimbursable expenses for site work at 8%, and that we,
It's not enough, is it?
you hit 8% in a minute.
I know.
And then we built $5 million athletic fields on top of that. So we just blew right through that. So trying to, I'm the one who's in MSBA's ProPay every month, submitting our reimbursement payment
Yep.
request. So making sure we maximize the way in which we, not necessarily classify, but the way in which we budget to begin with and set up the project to maximize our reimbursables has been important. For Attleboro, our other biggest challenge was that the MSBA sets a per pupil allowance for FF&E, and Attleboro is a comprehensive high school, so we have 16 CTE programs, and the FF&E requirements for automotive, dental hygienist, robotics, carpentry are just, we blow through those numbers immediately. So in a $259 million project, we had to contribute another $1.2 million of city resources to be able to fund the FF&E and AVIT budget. So for us, I guess both of those are tied back to that the state funding formula isn't always grounded in reality, but it's the rules which we're playing with. So you kind of have to, I don't want to say be creative, but you have to align yourself in ways that maximize the program.
Can you tell me who the OPM project
Yeah.
manager and your architect and your GC was, please?
Yeah, so of course, so we did CM at risk. So
Yep.
we started with Castle Booze, KBA, and have had an excellent experience. We've had an excellent experience with our whole project team, but KBA, I think the team's out of Foxborough, And then our OPM is Skanska. And the chair of our MBC and he's also the vice chair of SBC. You know, he always says stuff like, you know, you can get a great presentation and a great firm, but if you don't get the A team from the firm, it doesn't matter about the firm, right? So we've had Skanska on a few other things where we've gotten not the A team and haven't had a great experience, but this team that we've had with Skanska is the same team that did the Minuteman Regional High School, and they did an excellent job there. So Skanska's our OPM, Castle Booz is our architect, and then our CM is Consigli out of Milford.
Yep.
And our senior project manager was born, raised, and lives in North Attleboro. So he's been super accessible and really great on the project. So I've talked about the challenges we've had on the project, but I think we've been blessed with a lot of a good fortune and circumstance, in that we got some really great teams and really great contractors.
And CM at Risk, I think, is a great way of handling a project. We did the elementary school here in town, the Clyde Brown. You have children, do you not?
We don't, not yet,
Ah,
but
okay.
we bought a house bigger than what we currently need, so that's the idea.
Okay, well, then you'll get to know Clyde Brown maybe at some point.
Yeah.
We did CM on that project, and it was really a great way of working, I think.
Yeah, we got started, 10, 12 months, whatever, ahead of time. Our initial CM contract was for, $12 million, and now it's, $230 million just after we got to GMP, and then change orders after GMP. It's just, you can do miss scope for a few $100,000 here or there, but if it buys you 6 months, it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's a challenging, obviously, your project was a lot bigger than our elementary school, which was 51 mil.
It's still big. That's a big project.
For Millis, it was. Yeah. Yep. So, okay, I'm done with my questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to just sort of probe a little around the role of the committee. You had a very hands-on role, obviously, because your job was, to run the numbers, if you will, manage the project.
Mhm.
We're the policymakers. We're the strategy setters, not just this group, but our building committee, which includes some members of the school committee. So I want to be sure that in terms of the role is slightly different. A lot of the work that you've talked about, we have staff to do that as well. So you're not going to have to do that. Of course, if you find that they're not doing things the way you think are proper, that would be helpful. But I just want to make sure that you understand that this is a policy oversight role. Sometimes when you know all the details and know all the nitty-gritty, you can't see the forest from the trees. And so not sure that's a question, but how are you going to make sure you don't lose the forest for the trees?
Yeah.
Well, and to follow up on that, the other thing is we want to make sure you don't get frustrated, because it's, if it's something you do, it's like, I do carpentry poorly, but if I see someone doing something and they're not doing it well, it frustrates me. And, so I think to follow up to Jim's question is that, what we're doing is not necessarily the hands-on. And the other thing is, will it frustrate you if it doesn't go the way that in your mind would be the best way to have happen?
So I guess two-part answer. One, I definitely understand and appreciate the role of the committee. So as the staff person for our NBC, I see the difference in what my day job is versus what their, public service job is, their committee job is. Their job's not to, create the RFP and execute the contract and do the budget transfers and pay the bills and do the contractor evaluations. Like I get that that's not the role of this committee. Like, you guys, I imagine you're the designer selection board for a number of projects, voting on change orders or substantial completion and those sorts of things, and asking probing questions of, making sure that if there is an OPM or if you just have the architect, making sure that they're on the up and up. I actually, I was in a meeting recently about electrifying various fleets around the city. but none of it's actually my responsibility. I was just kind of brought in on the meeting just as a heads up. And I really loved the role of being able to ask questions that created work for other people rather than create work for me. I was like, I get to come in as a tornado and just ask all these questions, and then don't actually have to do anything about it. You have to come back to me. So that was a refreshing approach. But to be a little more serious about it, I guess I don't promise that I won't get frustrated. I think because I'm so close to it on a day-to-day, I don't expect Millis to operate like Attleboro or Attleboro to operate like Millis. It's two different forms of government and two different scales and two different communities with different priorities. I don't expect it to be one-to-one, but I imagine there will be times that I do get frustrated, either in that my community that I work in doesn't do it as well as here, or vice versa. So yeah.
Fair enough. John, do you have anything? Oh, sorry. John.
John Larkin? You're muted if you're.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you have anything for Jeremy?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Are there any other
Erin?
questions?
I don't have any specific questions. I've been very intrigued by the experience level. So thank you for telling us some more about that.
Of course.
Yeah, just to make it, I'm sure you know, it's not just school. There may be other things coming along. But we know the school is coming right down the pike. That's going to be the next thing starting, in what, 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah, so do you get involved? So at least with the Attleboro Municipal Building Commission, they talk about being involved in vertical projects rather than horizontal ones. So if there's a water main or a wastewater main or something like that, they don't bother getting involved in it. But if there's walls and a roof, they do typically get involved in. So is that typically your experience as well? Like, are you getting involved in, Chapter 90 or water, or water main or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you should be.
No.
All right, good. Well, we appreciate your time. We met with the other person. We're gonna mull it around amongst ourselves, and we'll get back to you with which way we decided to go.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time. And I know it's a public meeting, but I'll hop off as to not intrude on the deliberations. So
Okay, great.
thank you all.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Jim Duffy, you're sitting in the audience. Do you have any questions? You've been quiet.
Yeah, thank you. So I sent in a volunteer form this morning for the opening on the PBC, and then I hadn't looked at the town calendar for a while. And then actually this afternoon I looked at it and I saw, well, there's a PBC meeting tonight, and I see an agenda item that says interview candidates. So I'm late to the party. I came to the meeting. I haven't submitted any other background information or anything like that. If you want me to give you the spiel now, I'm happy to, or if you want me to write it up, I'm certainly happy to do that. The volunteer form had, nothing other than, phone number and address, and am I a registered voter, right? So.
Right. So if you want to go ahead, Jim, since you're here, we'd be more than willing to listen to your qualifications and reason why. If in an executive summary, if you could be so kind.
Well, you obviously already know I'm long-winded. So I've been in town for 40 years. It'd be actually 40 years this Thursday, as a matter of fact. Same house, same wife. So I'm a buy and hold guy. I spent 40 plus years in IT, in technology. Technology is a better term than IT. I started as a hardware engineer, built large things, put them out in the field, progressed into management. I ran professional services, consulting, and the relevant experience, I think, is all around project, solutions architecture, requirements gathering, how you lay that out into a program and a project and how ultimately you manage that project. Certainly some contracts involved all along the way. 6 years ago, I got out of that and I actually bought a radon mitigation business that was 30 years old. So for the last 6 years, I've really been doing that. So I've got construction experience. I'm not building houses or building anything commercial, but I've got to certainly be familiar with building codes and whatnot, and certainly have gained a lot of relationships with builders along the way. So, you know, certainly Jeremy, who was just on, you know, valuable experience in how to really work the system and understand what they're going to pay for, you know, what the SBA is going to pay for and how you work around it. I wish I could bring that experience to the table. I'm more of a hands-on, practical, analytical person. I'm very much been a very large project and program manager. You know, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. I've been a global account manager. So certainly, you know, big numbers don't scare me. Have been, you know, really been my life. So, you know, that's kind of it in a nutshell. So any specific questions on background I can maybe help with.
I have one. Go ahead, Rich.
No, go ahead.
Who did you work? You said you worked as a global account manager. I'm just curious.
Actually, a couple of organizations. Most recently, it was a company called Computer Sciences Corporation, which is now known as DXC. Before that, it was a company called Unisys. They're still called Unisys, believe it or not, but they go way back to the Sperry Univac days for those of us who are old enough to be before PCs, as I call it. And then I worked, my relevant facilities experience, I worked for a very large data center corporation, and they were global, but here in Boston, we actually built a data center. So I was very much involved in selling that data center space. So as part of that, you had to have all of the relevant knowledge as to what's behind that data center in terms of, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th generation data center, all of the N+1, N+2 facilities, all the multi-carrier things that are coming into it. Are you earthquake protected? It was pretty crazy stuff, as a matter of fact, things you never really understood, but you know, it's pretty fascinating. And all the security systems around that from an IT perspective, but also from a physical plant security. It was interesting listening to Jim about cameras. You know, this data center had body scanners and all of those things that you actually had to go through before you went into it. So, so I've got a decent facilities, you know, exposure, if you will. So you know, I'd call myself really a, you know, pretty, you know, I use the term jack of all trades. It's, you know, I don't necessarily like that term, but I've got a lot of experience in a lot of places. Let's put it that way. So.
Are you still working or not?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. So is there time in your day to do anything?
Well, defined day, right? So a 3 o'clock afternoon meeting would be potentially a tough thing for me unless I knew about it a couple of weeks ahead of time. You know, in the evenings, I'm pretty well typically home.
Okay.
But you know, with enough time knowledge, enough advance notice, I've got time. I can make time because I work for myself.
And that's a simple system. You work, you make money.
Well, if you don't work, you don't make money. So people
Correct.
say, yeah, you work for yourself, you get to control your own hours. It's like, yeah, I do, but you know, you don't get paid for not working. So
Been there, done that.
All right, Jim, did you have anything?
Nope, no questions, thanks.
All right, John, are you good?
Yeah, just one quick question. You say are you in the mitigation business?
Yep. I do some testing, but I don't really have a lot of time for testing because I'm too busy installing systems.
Okay. So somebody else does the testing, you come in to do the mitigation, or?
Yeah, I mean, most of my work is based on someone else have already done the testing, whether that's part of a real estate transaction or, quite honestly, since COVID, I've never been busier. Because everyone was working at home, working in their basement. Luckily, there's more awareness of radon today, though I still get a lot of people that had never heard of it, but there's generally a lot more awareness. So a lot of people working at home in their basement said, I better do a radon test. And a lot of people have now bought home monitors, which are a great thing. But the last 2+ years, I give away a lot of work. I only typically work in the Metro West area. And I get inquiries from all over. But it's certainly been very busy, and most of my work is, yes, based on some test that's been done somewhere. I do occasionally get some inquiries to come do some testing, but
Is it mostly new construction or?
yeah,
resale?
all the above. New, old, sometimes very old. Those are big challenges. Yeah, new construction, the building code, you're supposed to have a passive system. A lot of builders don't know it. Very few building inspectors in town seem to be looking for it. So I do get a fair bit of work related to brand new construction where the last minute they did a radon test, because the problem is a radon test is always the last thing anyone does. And just before closing, and now we got a crisis because we got to take care of the radon before we can do a close. So, but yeah, it's all of the above.
I think we know that, right, guys?
Yeah,
From the
Yeah,
school.
well, I'll be honest with you. I'll apologize. Many times looking at the Clyde Brown project, I kept thinking to myself, I should ask about radon systems and I just never did, and I apologize. And then, it became an issue, but I think it was resolved fairly well. So.
yeah, last minute though.
Understood.
We want to make it fun. All right, well, good. So we appreciate your input and explaining what you're about, and
Yeah.
we have to deliberate and decide what we're going to do.
Understood. I'm going to be at these meetings anyway, so that's one of the reasons I submitted the volunteer forms, because, well, if I'm going to be there anyway, I might as well be on the committee if I can. So that's fine.
Oh, and
Thank you.
we appreciate your offer.
All right, take care.
Well,
Thank you.
taken.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. So we've got two candidates that, actually three candidates. I think, because he submitted, I don't think there's an issue on considering Jim. So I think the thing with it is, I think we have to think of the positives for each person and then the negatives. Why don't we let, who wants to go first? Jim?
More comfortable with the positives.
Yep.
I look at it from the point of view of each of them brings to the table some experience. Each of them brings to the table a commitment, which is really exciting. Considering, that there's a lot of work to be done. On at least one and maybe more than one project coming down the road. I look at it as, who would be what would add the most complementary skills to the group? And I kind of think that, Jeremy has that, plus his experience, deep experience with MSBA. Not that we should just go based on MSBA, but that's going to be a lot of work. So it's the most relevant, it's the most direct, it's the most current information experience with, this funding mechanism that we're really going to, be relying on for millions of dollars. So if we were just looking at, something like senior center, I wouldn't feel quite as strongly about it, but I just think that he has a skill set that's really important for us. The only negative, of course, is, and I guess it's with both Jim Duffy and Jeremy, that since they have full-time jobs. And there's a little risk with Jeremy that, during critical season for budgets, I like this comment about how easy it was to do a budget here, just go to town meeting and it's done. It's done. I thought Aaron would step up and just set him straight there, but so that was my 2 cents on the candidate. I thought we'd benefit from any of them, frankly.
No, I agree. Diane, what do you think?
I agree with what Jim says about Jeremy's experience, having been through the Clyde Brown and found the whole funding process with MSBA on what they'll pay for and what they won't pay for. It was a giant maze for my brain.
Mhm.
Wayne spent a lot of time working on it with Compass, our OPM. And, I think in the end, it just was so critical to understand that process and fight for every dollar. I think that's a real positive about him. I've seen Jim Duffy at a bunch of meetings in town, and I was impressed with his questions. I think he would bring some experience that may not exist in the committee, which would be nice. I'm not sure about John's experience. I think he's certainly a willing worker. I don't know how relevant his experience is. Anyway, that's where I stand. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. John?
I pretty much agree with Diane and Jim that as far as John goes, as Diane said, he seems very willing. His background is probably certainly not as strong as Jeremy, but his strong suit to me would be his availability. And on the negative side with Jeremy, I would be a little concerned about his availability. I mean, he sounds like a pretty busy guy, but he seems to feel like he'd be able to handle it. When I first got the emails from Diane and I looked at both of them, Jeremy's jumped out at me, and all to do, as I said earlier, about that whole financial end, that's just a maze to me as well as it is to Diane. And excuse me, he sounds like it'd be a guy you could really lean on to help you through that mess. Jim Duffy, I don't know at all. Sounds like a very interesting guy. I'm sure he'd be a guy that would pitch in and all that. And from the sound of it, he's going to be at the meetings anyway. So, if he has something to say, he can say it at a meeting, I suppose. But Jeremy is probably the guy that would help us the most, I think.
Thank you. And I think part of the thing for us as the committee is, like they had said, knowing the things that we can or cannot have. Like, I know that, the site work is limited. And if you have a site that has lots of, things that you have to take care of, you're going to have to pay for it. The athletic fields, most of that stuff is not covered. So, part of our, whatever we do to guide the process is that we just have to tell, we have to explain to people what they can't have. So that's going to be part of our job, is that, hey, it would be great to have all these things, but they're not going to reimburse us for it. And, my personal opinion on this is that this, the school project's going to have to be very austere, and we're going to have to be very tight, like we did with the DPW project. I mean, we came in under on the Clyde Brown. I think we'd have to continue, that same, same theme of working hard to make sure that we not only stayed within our budget, but we tried to keep it under. So I think, the financial part did really excite me when I saw it initially, when he submitted this information, so. But like I said, it's great that we had 3 people that were willing, we just don't normally get that at all.
It's amazing.
Right. So, and Aaron, I'd like to hear your opinion on,
Before we go to Aaron, Rich, can you rank for me? Who's
I
one?
think, yeah, I think Jeremy is 1. And I think it's a toss up between Jim Duffy and John. I would say either one of those would be a good, alternate. And I think we should bring up I think we should have the, associate member, and we should, we could offer possibly to the person, if they're willing to be an associate, and then we could decide if we wanted to put it in the warrant and get it pushed through in the spring. We could approach it that way. But
How
it would
about
be nice
2?
to have another, would be nice to, go ahead.
How about 2 associates?
Doesn't bother me. What do you guys think?
At some point, it gets unwieldy.
Yeah, that is a good
Perhaps.
point.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So
Okay.
maybe we do,
The alternates would be non-voting.
they would be for now, they'd be non-voting.
Yeah.
But we could put a change in for the bylaw to have them voting. But that's not something we have to decide right now.
Yeah.
We could offer the associate, position as a non-voting, and then we could work on, discuss it internally and see if we want to push the bylaw.
Tim, what do you think on that?
I think the non-voting is the way to go. If you want to, 2 is too many to me, but I mean, that doesn't mean it's wrong. I mean, it's worth a try.
Mhm.
And look, I mean, we're sitting here with the riches we've never had before. So I hate to turn my back on willing hands,
I agree.
So, maybe we try it. And I think non-voting is the way to go, because the voting, focuses the attention on those who are actually going to decide. Now, this also tentatively makes the school building committee even bigger. I mean, how are we going to deal with that? I mean, there are already non-voting members on that committee.
Right.
But I don't mind having citizens actively participate. I guess, John, to answer your question, citizens actively participating in a constructive way is a good thing.
I agree.
I agree with that also. I think the non-voting is the way to go. Personally, I think the non-voting is the way to stay, to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And I think as far as the school building committee goes, the non-voting people on our committee would remain non-voting.
Okay. I agree with that.
Okay. All right. So I think I'll make
We want to
ahead.
hear from Aaron.
oh, sorry.
Sure. I agree with pretty much everything you guys have said. I would enjoy if it was offered to Jeremy and then the other 2 candidates as the associate non-voting members. I think that makes sense. And I think, what Jim said, having this wealth of volunteers is not normal. So keeping them engaged, giving them a role even as a non-voting member, I think would be a really, really good gesture, and to, welcome them into a committee to get their feet wet, get them involved. But with Jeremy's experience, I think he sounds a bit invaluable, even if he's slightly unavailable at a period of time. I think to me, that sounds like a sacrifice worth making.
Usually we used to ask him too.
No, I absolutely agree. I agree with the non-voting. I agree with Jeremy. I also liked his energy.
Yeah.
We need high energy people get through these big projects. So
He looks
I
like
agree
he's
with-
about 12 years old. I don't mean it that way, but he's very, very young.
He claims he got out of Cornell. I'm not sure he's out of high school.
Well,
See,
compared to us,
mixing it up's good. Mixing it up with, get some younger folks in there too.
Agree,
I mean,
That I
Exactly.
totally agree with.
he's good
And
to,
I
he's
agree with
good
the
to lower.
associates too. It would be good to have more people involved. It's
Yep.
good.
Right, I make a motion that we put Jeremy Stoll forward as the replacement member for the Permanent Building Committee and assign the other two applicants as associate members with non-voting.
Second,
All right, motion's made and seconded. I'll poll everybody. Diane,
yes.
John,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes,
and I vote yes also, so that's unanimous. So, all right, great. Well,
This
that
is
was-
so
question
exciting.
when is the next select board meeting?
Tuesday, December 6th.
So this could essentially get on that agenda, hopefully,
We also,
Um,
so we have a school meeting on that Wednesday,
the 7th.
7th. Yeah.
right.
But it'd be nice if we could
Yep,
ask you to actually make the appointment.
yep, I'll send the message right now, actually.
And given that that's the kickoff meeting, it's perfect if they could make that.
And it's
Okay.
amazing that we actually had this meeting, so that would happen. That was like we planned it.
I know.
Rich, you're amazing. What can we say?
We need a leash on him. He just goes all the time. Well, I'm just delighted to have one person, let alone three.
Right.
Yeah.
So who's going to reach out to the candidates?
Well, why don't we can send it through well, you can, because we'll send it through the chair and you can send it to them.
So you'll send me something and I'll forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that makes that's what we do in the planning board is that actually Camille is actually the mirrors, she's the person behind the curtain running all the puppet strings. So
Okay, does
So
anybody
you
have
can be-
Jim Duffy's contact information? I guess Karen must, but
I can
because we
get it.
didn't. Okay,
I think probably saying want to join us is probably a little too informal, you think?
Yeah.
That was a joke.
All right, good. Well, I think since we've got that done, I think that was all we had left on the agenda. Unless somebody else had something else that they wanted to bring up, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
All
Good
right.
night.
good night, everybody.